Hello friends of Powerhouse Bakery and all my favorite divas and dudes out there. My name is Suzanne Parker and I'm the owner of Powerhouse Bakery, and we are here to learn about nutrition. And I'm so excited to share with you 30 days of healthy. And what I mean by that is in the first month of the year, a lot of people are really setting out to do something different and better, and people are doing resolutions, and a lot of times those resolutions are built around healthy. We all care about our health, and we all are so conscientious about what can we do to make this year better. And when it comes to health, a lot of folks are wondering what to eat and how do we make our healthy diet and how do we build our immune system, especially with all the concern as of late with viruses in the environment, and how do we really build our own personal immune system and our arsenal of those white soldiers that really help to fight off the outside world and keeping our inside world safe. And so what I want to share with you in the next several days of this month is really looking at what foods are healthy to start our new year with, and how do we build our immune system, how do we build from the inside out health, wellness, and overall good nutrition. And we know that, of course, nutrition is only part of the puzzle. Really, to have a healthy overall lifestyle, we also want to look at the other parameters. So sleep is important, and exercise and social engagement. And I know that's tough when everybody's been told to stay at home, but thank goodness for ways to connect in safe environments, even if you have to stay at home more. Make sure that social engagement is really a part of your healthy plan for 2021. And of course, spiritual strength and intellectual activities are still really important in that overall wellness plan. But today in Powerhouse Bakery, I'm going to challenge you as far as what you put on the table, and I'm going to tax your brain a little bit in that intellectual prowess as I take you through some of the tips of zinc. So zinc is one of those very important micronutrients. And what I mean by micronutrient is that our body needs very small amounts. And so you're not necessarily going to find zinc on a food label. So when you look at the nutrition facts of a certain food, there's requirements that the USDA has for telling us what is healthy about this food. And sadly, oftentimes zinc isn't even noted. However, the good news is deficiencies in the US are pretty uncommon. However, in other parts of the world, zinc deficiency is not uncommon. So I'll talk a little bit about that. But thanks to our government requirements, we do have some important information that's on our nutrition facts panel. Of course, we look at serving size, we look at saturated fats and the total fats as well. We look at sodium, fiber, protein, and then this little line down below also does include a couple of those important micronutrients. We have good information on calcium and iron, and that's because we have seen more deficiencies of those two micronutrients, calcium and iron. And so a lot of times we understand that those foods need to be looked at. We need to maybe even fortify different common foods with calcium and iron in order to make sure the general public gets plenty of them. For example, orange juice has calcium added, and that's great if you can't have dairy products and you know you need to get plenty of calcium. That's an important way to have a fortified beverage that doesn't normally have calcium. Same thing with iron. While we don't typically fortify foods with iron, that's one of those that we watch when we get our blood work done. We look for potential anemia, and iron is one of those micronutrients that's so important in establishing a healthy parameter. And when we're looking at blood work, that's one that we really check on. But we don't necessarily look at this micronutrient, zinc. So what I want to share with you today is why do we need it, how much do we need, where do we get it, and what's the difference if we eat a plant-based diet versus a carnivorous diet. And so I want to share a little bit of that with you. So let's get started. First of all, like I mentioned, zinc is a micronutrient. It's absolutely critical to get zinc, this mineral, in the foods we eat because our body cannot make it from other things that we eat. And a little side note, I want to make sure that's really well understood, because we can eat lots of different foods that have protein. It doesn't necessarily have to be a food that's a complete protein. Remember the amino acids that we talked about way back when in our nutrition class. We have some essential amino acids that you have to get from food, and if you get those, you can make all the other proteins that you need, which is kind of cool, right? Our body can resynthesize those building blocks into all the important proteins that we need for enzyme systems and rebuilding cells and muscle and soft tissues. Now with zinc, we can't make zinc. It is a very important metal that is part of enzyme systems in our body. So we need zinc because it's an important cofactor or component, we'll say, to enzymes. What do enzymes do in our body? They help to make reactions happen. So we can know that if we have plenty of our healthy micronutrients in our body, our enzyme systems are going to work correctly. And of course, that's key. So then it begs the question, what kinds of systems do zinc participate in? Well, we know that it's pretty rare to get a deficiency of zinc in the US, but when we look at other countries, we do find, sadly, that people have some pretty severe deficiencies. And when we give them the micronutrients like zinc, they get better. So some of the common symptoms that we see when there is too low of this important mineral in our body, one of the most common things we see in other countries is diarrhea, nausea and vomiting, and malabsorption. So we know that malabsorption happens when we don't have a healthy gut. And we've talked about how to keep a healthy gut a lot in our times together. And of course, when we think of somebody that is sick, a lot of things have happened, right? They probably have eaten inadequate amino acids, and so their body systems aren't running smoothly. And ultimately what happens is their gut is affected. So malabsorption is something that happens when we have an inadequate diet. And of course, when you have malabsorption, it's even harder to get all those important nutrients. So having dehydration from diarrhea, nausea, and vomiting can, of course, exacerbate a scenario if you're deficient already. So when babies are given zinc, they get better. Of course, we're talking about folks that are already malnourished. And so being able to stop diarrhea, giving zinc, great solution. Simple and easy. As of late, we have been looking at how to fight off different viruses. And we've heard in the media that if we build our immune system with things like vitamin D and vitamin C and zinc, we can help build our immune system, make it stronger and better. Absolutely true. Fighting off viruses is what our immune system does really well. So zinc is really key in building the immune system and helping to make sure that all of those systems in our immune function are doing well. And again, it's because zinc is part of the enzyme systems that build the IgA, the IgG, and the macrophage, and all those white soldiers that are so important in our immune system. But something to keep in mind is if a little is good, is a lot better. And that's something that I really think we need to look at carefully. Because we don't see very many zinc deficiencies in the U.S., we'd still see a lot of people supplementing with zinc, especially in this past year with our fear of viruses in the environment. And so sometimes adding more of something does not mean it's better. In fact, if we add more zinc to our diet, we can sometimes cause diarrhea, vomiting, GI upset, and malabsorption. So you see that the whole issue goes in a circle. If we have too little zinc, we can cause problems with malabsorption. And the other way around too. If we take too much, it now causes malabsorption. So we want to make sure that we're really careful about how we supplement any micronutrient. Similarly, if we know that we have a deficiency in iron, say we've had our blood work done and we're showing we have signs of anemia, then we would want to treat that anemia, treat your symptom with the recommended medicine. And so doing an iron supplement for a short period of time is really valuable in helping to improve your anemia. Of course, you know, if we have blood loss or if there's something else causing the anemia, you want your doctor and your dietitian to work with you to understand why you have that anemia. But suffice to say that taking iron for a short period of time is exactly what we want to recommend if we have a symptom like anemia. Now, if we want to supplement with zinc, again, we want to have a rationale for doing so. You can get a blood test that will help us understand where your zinc level is and if you are in fact deficient. There's lots of symptoms that people are trying to treat with zinc, and I just want to warn you to be careful with that because excess zinc can also not be a good thing. So when we think about how much zinc do we need, we look at the USRDA, so again the same group that gave us our label information, also will give us some guidelines as to how much do we really need. So zinc, we need 11 milligrams. So how do we know how much milligrams are? Granted, we don't. Unless you've worked in a science lab and you understand grams and milligrams, 11 of something doesn't mean much. But let's suffice to say that it's not very much. And so when we think of different reasons for people to want to add more, again, we have to have a good rationale for it. There are a couple of issues that some people like to supplement for, so meaning getting more than 11 milligrams. WebMD, I did some research with this. I do lots of research on the web when I'm trying to give you good information, and oftentimes people will investigate WebMD. That's a really great resource. And it really says that no good evidence has been found that supplementing with zinc will help improve our immune system against something like COVID or a virus. But it has seemed to be helpful in minimizing the severity of a common cold. And so maybe one of the most common ways we've seen zinc be offered as a supplement is in a throat lozenge. And so, you know, that might be a good one. There's another one that's fairly common called Emergent C, and it's a vitamin C, little bubbly that you can drink if you feel a cold coming on, and it has zinc added. Also, zinc deficiency seems to improve supplementing zinc seems to help improve things like herpes, even attention deficit disorder, sometimes depression, and even acne. So those are pretty big diagnoses. So again, if you have a symptom that you need to address, working with your health practitioner is really good to decide what arsenal do we want to bring on board to maybe combat that symptom. Because ADHD is certainly a wide-reaching symptom and diagnosis that people want to try to treat. And so just throwing lots of supplements at this brain situation is not necessarily a good way to go, because anytime we start to do a lot more than those 11 milligrams, we have potential of having other minerals become out of whack. So as I was doing my reading, I thought it was really helpful to see that if you go much more than even 20 milligrams of zinc, you can start seeing bad side effects. And so copper malabsorption starts to happen, and of course iron. So there's those other metals, those other micronutrients that become out of balance by giving too much of one, that might be zinc. So let's kind of get an idea of what does zinc look like in real foods, because I always like to say whenever possible we want to use real foods as much as we can so that we don't A, have a deficiency, B, we get the nutrient in its most natural state and its most natural concentration. That way our body systems are best apt to manage those nutrients and use them to their fullest. And one thing to keep in mind is zinc is not stored in the body. It's a a water soluble, we might say, and so that just means that when we take in a micronutrient like zinc, it does not stay in the body very long, so we're going to pee it out, unless you're doing mega doses, and then your body's not able to wash out that mineral as well, and so it does end up sticking around, and that's why it would cause potential problems otherwise. So let's take a look at some foods. So what I've got here on my table is a variety of food types, and you know that I love to really explore ways to get the most nutrients, and something that's very popular right now is going more plant-based, so you know that I definitely love that, and I think truly it is a healthy way to go. If we wanted to know where zinc comes from, the first thing we're going to hear is oysters. So when's the last time you had some oysters? And go ahead and try to get your kids to eat oysters. It's not a very popular food, so I think it's always kind of funny when I see that as, you know, the way to get a nutrient. Go ahead and eat liver and oysters when people aren't going to eat that. But what is very realistic is the second one down, which is all meats. So beef, pork, chicken, all great sources of zinc. If you wanted to do fish, shellfish is a great source of zinc. So there you have it. That's why in the U.S. we do not see very many zinc deficient people, because we have plenty to eat in these categories. You know that as far as the world comparison, we have way more protein in our diet than we need, especially from meat. So the good news is we probably are doing just fine by eating these items. How much do we need to have our 11 milligrams for the day? I'm going to show you in just a second. But what if you were a non-meat eater? What would be some other foods that would help us get our 11 milligrams a day? And so on my table, I've got a very nice myriad of things. But in general, it's foods that we already talk about as being healthy. And you guessed it, it's going to be beans, especially soybeans and tofu. It's going to be lentils, powerhouse of protein for the plant-based world. Nuts and seeds. Again, nuts and seeds are so loaded with nutrients. The more we add these little powerhouses to our salads and to our rice and to our pastas and to our meat dishes, the better. And that's truly why at Powerhouse Bakery I set out to create a healthy menu that was gluten-free. And what did I have to do? I had to add in nuts and seeds in order to get the lignans and the protein and the fiber and the minerals and all these micronutrients. So these are a wonderful resource any way you slice it. And then we also go even a little deeper. Not only is zinc going to be high in these protein alternatives for the plant kingdom, also we're going to find plenty of zinc in fruits and vegetables. And so you can go on the web and get a nice list of zinc-rich foods. It's easy to get. But I thought what was so interesting is one of the sites that I visited gave us foods based on 200 calorie serving. So if you wanted to get varying amounts of zinc based on a set calorie level, it's pretty amazing how much of some foods you have to eat to get a certain amount of zinc. So I'll share those with you. But first, let's look at this spread, because I want to be able to build a plate and help you see kind of what those foods are going to look like when you add them up for a day, and where can we get great sources of zinc. So I'm going to get together first my carnivorous group, and I kind of put together a little list here because I added up from that list based on the foods and how much they provide as far as the daily value, 11 grams, and what that serving might look like. So the first thing I have is our lean ground beef, and so this is a half a cup of beef, so 4 ounces, and that's going to get us about 30% of our way into our needs for the whole day of zinc. And then if we wanted to add a little bit of greens, so we have to add 3 cups of greens to get about 4 milligrams of zinc. So cooked and uncooked, that's about 4 milligrams. And then I want to add some goodies to it, so I'm going to add some of my cashews. So 2 tablespoons is going to give me another 3.5 milligrams of zinc. And then I'm going to put some blackberries on my beautiful salad. Now, sadly, if you are going to just get all of your zinc by eating blackberries, you'd need about 7 cups. I know, nobody's going to eat that much. And we don't need to, right? We want to get a wide variety of foods anyway. So even if you're a carnivorous lover, you can have beef and pretty much take care of the whole day. Add some greens, some berries and nuts, and you've got all of your 11 milligrams of zinc covered. Nice, right? Okay, let's try this again. Actually, before I go with my new plate, let's say we want to just eat more plants and leave out meat for one of the days of our week. Just by adding half a cup of lentils, we can get all of our zinc covered and even have a little extra. And what I love about this is we can also decrease the amount of saturated fat, increase the fiber, multiply the minerals of all types by just adding in this. Now the downside is we are going to need to cook these, and we got to make sure that we add some healthy fats when we cook them. So something to keep in mind. But here is another one. Tofu is a great substitution pretty much exactly across the board for a meat. So if I were to stuff my pepper with some tofu instead of the beef, I would get just about the same amount of zinc, which is awesome. The other thing I think is cool is if we do sprouted lentils or sprouted mung beans, that is double the amount of zinc that you get in a typical serving of beef. That's pretty awesome. So now let's plan our day with all plants. Let me show you how well this goes. Mushrooms, great source of zinc. So I'm going to add my multiple cups of greens. Also, if you like beet greens, that's actually my absolute favorite way to eat beets. Beet greens are even higher in zinc than spinach and kale combined. Pretty awesome. So use your beet greens. Whenever you're picking beets at the store, make sure that you get really beautiful fresh beets, and you know that by what the tops look like. So really good to go. Now I'm going to add my mushrooms. So a half a cup of mushrooms is enough to get your 20% of your daily value of zinc. Who would have thought? Mushrooms, right? And in the vegetarian and vegan world, mushrooms are kind of the meat flavor, the umami flavor that we love to put into dishes to make us feel like we're getting something hearty. Pretty cool. Now I'm going to add my pumpkin seeds. So it just takes a couple of tablespoons of pumpkin seeds to add up my daily value of zinc. And then, of course, the favorite is the hemp hearts. Great source of zinc. Great source of all minerals. And you don't have to use a lot. Just sprinkling them over your little saute. And this is actually what we do for our tofu scramble. And it's a perfect way to get at least half of your zinc for the whole day. Lastly, for dessert, I wanted to show you this beautiful little parfait. So I've used chia seeds and about a tablespoon and a half of our Going Nuts in the Tub granola and a few berries. And this is giving us 42% of our USRDA recommendations of zinc. So the nice realization is that it isn't that hard. But if you are eating plant-based foods and you're getting a lot of your zinc from greens, just be aware that there are going to be some, it's going to be a little harder to absorb all the zinc. So it can't hurt to get a little extra. And so being careful about where you get your calories so that every calorie matters is a great way to go. So adding nuts and seeds is a perfect addition to any diet, whether you're going to make it all plant-based or adding in a little bit of meat here and there. But just make sure that you start thinking about where does the zinc come from, and go to the different websites and just start to see what foods do you eat and what concentration do you eat in order to get the calories and the zinc that you need for a strong and healthy immune system. So I hope this has helped you, and thanks so much for joining me here at Powerhouse Bakery. Come visit me again soon. Bye-bye.